Thank you, and thank you, Congressman, for the opportunity to be here. It's an honor to be here, spend these last 2 days, yesterday and today, with all of you here. And just to give you a quick intro, my name is Kristopher Klaich. I'm the Deputy Director of Policy at the Chamber of Digital Commerce. We're the first and largest trade association representing the industry, so we have a very wide group of members that we represent, from the traditional finance sector all the way to blockchain native companies like Bitcoin miners. So before I got in this field, I spent most of my career in the national security field, working in places like Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, and doing some work with the U.S. military in Afghanistan, back here in the U.S., as well as some other law enforcement and counterterrorism related issues. So my mindset in coming to this industry is certainly focused on that aspect of this industry, the digital asset industry. So I want to set a little bit of context surrounding the use of and regulation of digital assets to set some of the things that we may speak about. First, here in the U.S., there's been much talk about the use of digital assets in illicit finance, and in particular, financing Hamas prior to its attack on Israel. It absolutely is true that they raised funds via crypto. And just as concerning, North Korea has effectively hacked crypto platforms, stealing billions of dollars over the last few years that prop up the regime and fund its nuclear weapons program. This is unacceptable. But at the same time, only around 0.25% of crypto transactions are illicit. And the UN estimates that 2 to 5% of transactions in the traditional finance world are illicit. That means that it's at least an order of magnitude more in the traditional world. On top of that, the volume of transactions of dollars or whatever currency are being traded is somewhere in the order of magnitude of 100 or 1,000 times greater in the traditional world compared to the crypto world. So that puts the volume of currency being transacted illicitly in the crypto world somewhere around 1/10,000th or 1/1000th compared to the traditional world. So I think we need to keep that in mind as we have the discussion about how terrible or difficult or effective crypto is in illicit finance, whether it be for anti-money laundering or terrorism financing. So on the other hand, as an open and transparent ledger of transactions, blockchain technology facilitates the tracking, tracing, and dismantling of blockchain-based terrorist funding and has proven enormously effective for law enforcement. Consider that a former deputy CIA director has written about how use of crypto in illicit finance is greatly exaggerated and an incredible tool to track down bad actors. According to the Treasury Department's assessment of terrorism financing, the lion's share of funding moves through the traditional banking system or cash, and the Deputy Treasury Secretary Adeyemo recently stated that, quote, the use of crypto is not the vast majority of the way these groups are funded. A former Israeli government official that is one of the foremost counterterrorism financing experts in the world recently testified here at the Senate Banking Committee, saying, crypto is currently a very small part of the puzzle. The major funding channels were, and remain state funding. Iran and others, those are the major players. Most of the funds are still being transferred by the traditional channels we know from the past. And maybe most telling, earlier this year, Hamas itself informed its donors to discontinue use of Bitcoin in funding them for the protection of their own donors. And on top of that, more recently, there's been next to no funding for Hamas post October 7th. And that has been the result of a partnership between law enforcement and counterterrorism officials in the US and Israel and other countries working together to shut down accounts that Hamas and other groups like Palestinian Islamic Jihad had at crypto exchanges. Just yesterday, Senator Marshall told us that the banking industry wrote his anti-money laundering bill that would in effect kill the crypto industry in the US. Is it logical for a legacy industry to draft a bill that would eliminate a competing industry? Should we trust them to understand the nuance and detail of a technology they have not developed or used extensively? I deeply respect the senator's intent to limit illicit finance, but this approach is illogical, and that is not borne out in some of the bill's, that is borne out in some of the bill's provisions. Perhaps most notably, that mining and validating computers that run on software are not banks, and regulation and law should be nuanced to account for that. We appreciate the Treasury's and many of members of, members of Congress focus on improving the utility, safety, and legitimacy of the digital asset industry. But we need common sense, constructive action based on reality instead of mischaracterizations or misunderstanding to get this right. And the blockchain industry must rise to the occasion and do a better job to help build this technology to protect our security in partnership with Treasury and law enforcement and Congress. So, given that context, China's foray into blockchain is alarming. It accounts for 84% of all blockchain patent applications globally. It has plans for Blockchain Research Center to connect universities, developers, and businesses to encourage industry growth. China's homegrown blockchain system has been operating for over 3 years and integrates data directories from more than 80 government departments in Beijing, 16 districts, and more than 10 social institutes. More than 500,000 data directories. Thank you, appreciate it. More than 500,000 data directories and 2,700 information systems are managed in real time on the blockchain in China. Shanghai has plans to build a blockchain infrastructure by the end of 2025 for application in fields such as digital assets, transportation, industrial Internet of Things, supply chain, finance, and carbon management. China is developing an internationally focused blockchain-based services network to incorporate trade, global trade and development. That means they're coming for us in this room and all of your nations and citizens. China has already begun implementing a CBDC, as we discussed a little bit yesterday, linked to a social credit system to control and manipulate their population, and it will look to expand that internationally. What does this mean for your countries? There are enormous economic opportunities as well as national security risks associated with this technology. And I envision a world in which all nations will be forced to choose between aligning closely with a Chinese-led and controlled blockchain-based economic system or a freer, open, collaborative, and constructive one that's led by the US, its friends, and its allies. So I would posit that for you to think about and for us to chat about this morning. Thank you.